Hey guys, it's Fishing with Farmer. Back in the garage today, and we're going to go over one of the most unutilized patterns for pre-spawn, in my opinion, in the North Georgia southeast area. That is docks, pole docks, floating docks, and where I fish these places. Just like everybody's fishing points, channel swings, rocky outcroppings, laydowns, a dock is another great place that these fish will stage before they push shallow to go back to these other areas to spawn. And I'm going to give you 5 baits of my choosing that I target docks with this time of year. So stay tuned, and I hope y'all enjoy. My first go-to bait is something I really enjoy fishing. I can cover top to bottom with on a dock, and it's just a jig, just a straight up, just good old jig. I usually have 2 different style jigs tied on when I'm targeting docks this way. I have a full-size jig with an Arkie head, and I also have a ball head. Just for the simple reason, a finesse jig is just to see what the bass are wanting that day. Are they wanting a smaller profile, or are they wanting a big bulky profile? Jigs can cover from the dirt shallow on the walkway to the very deepest area of the dock out there towards the main lake. A jig is a good way to get a big one to bite as well, because they're feeding up, getting ready for the spawn during the pre-spawn. Docks are really hard, if they're, say, under the docks, to get a crankbait or a jerk bait or one of these hard-bodied treble hook baits up underneath a dock, especially if you've got floating docks like I have in my area. So a jig is a really, really good way to get that bait under the dock, and you can fish it out and catch a lot of big fish during the pre-spawn. What I pair it up with is I either pair it with just a regular old Gary Yamamoto twin tail grub, or a some type of twin tail crawl like a Z crawl, or a Xzone adrenaline crawl. Those are my 2 favorites when I'm skipping docks. Way I want to work this is I've got 2 retrieves. First retrieve is just your regular old jig retrieve. Throw it in there, either drag it or just kind of hop it back on the bottom. The second one is I actually use my jig as a swim jig, so I don't have to have 2 different jigs tied on. I'll throw it in there, either keep it up next to the floats if I'm seeing fish under the floats, or I'll let it sink for a little bit and swim it and shake it back. Those are my 2 retrieves when fishing a jig around docks in the pre-spawn. My second bait is actually a chatterbait. A chatterbait is extremely hard to beat during pre-spawn around any type of cover. It does not excel around wood, but grass, floating cover, floating docks, this thing is phenomenal. Low light conditions is where I like this, or muddy, not muddy water, but stained water. A jackhammer or any type of chatterbait is hard to beat. As far as trailers go, spunk shad, MRE from Tactical, those are things that I like to throw on back of mine. Something that's got a little bit of movement that can make these fish think it's a bait fish trying to run. Again, this is pre-spawn, so they're feeding up, they're willing to chase. Retrieves, 2 retrieves. First one, throw it out straight, reel it back, make the fish commit to it. Second retrieve is throwing a couple quick pops of the reel to make that chatterbait dance. in the water. Give it a change of direction. It can cause a reaction strike. Those are my 2 retrieves as far as dock fishing with a chatterbait. Another bait that I use is a swim bait. Either that be a hard-bodied swim bait or a soft-bodied swim bait. Still swim bait, but that one is the Berkley Cull Shad, the other one's the Megabass Mag Draft. I like the Mag Draft over the Cull Shad. Skip extremely well, can get them up underneath docks and pull those fish to you. Big fish bait, great way to catch some of the biggest bass of the year under these docks is with these bigger swim baits. I like the pearls and natural shad colors. I really like the Mag Drafts, the rainbow, or that ghost rainbow, or the one that's got the pink line down the side. It's a really phenomenal one as well. Retrieves are slower retrieves, make that big boot tail work. I actually like to add stinger hooks to the tops of these baits. You can buy them. They're made for this. But you take and put that that stinger hooks braided line right here, and you come back and you put it right here at the back. So say you have a fish come up and grabs it and curls that tail but doesn't get all the way up here to this treble hook. Well, now you've got a little bit more, you got some hook back here, you have a better chance of getting that fish in. Soft swim baits, I'll take them over the hard-bodied swim baits most of the time. But the other hard-bodied swim bait is, say, something like a trick shad or a some type of glide bait. The Spro Chad Shad. Can put these around docks, paralleling docks, and gliding these things through. The retrieve that I use here is just a slow hit of my reel, making that thing glide, or if I want it to chop a little bit more, I get a little quicker and just make that thing glide down the side of the dock. That's what I use when targeting not bigger fish, but I'm looking for bigger fish, is I'm using a either a soft-bodied swim bait 6 inches or bigger, or I'm using a hard-bodied glide bait. Really a really good pattern to catch some of the biggest fish of the year. Early morning, late of the evening, real dark cloud cover, active fish, got water temps 55 and above. That's important, 55 and above. A buzzbait. This is the Brazalo. This is a Brazalo buzzbait. I think this is their wee whacker. It skips extremely well. It's a buzzbait you can skip, and it's a small enough profile that you're able to mimic those smaller bait fish that these fish might be feeding on. You can bump it up to a bigger one if you're seeing a lot of big bait, but as just a going around docks to see if they're active, it's hard to beat a small one. First thing in the morning, great around the corners of docks or on the flats leading into the docks. But I like this a lot to see if I can trigger reaction strikes, because a buzzbait is known to catch big bass. I usually just go with a white myself. You can throw green pumpkin, but I usually just stick with a white around our area because of the bait fish that we're targeting, that these fish are eating, either that be bluebacks or threadfin. The way I work this is I just want it to leave. I want to hear it gurgle just a little bit. I'm slow rolling this thing. just enough to where I can hear it gurgle just under the surface. I'm not sitting there burning this thing back. It's just a slow gurgle because the water temp is still pretty cold, but it's just a slow retrieve. I might put a pop in there every once in a while, spray a little water to see if I can get a reaction strike, but usually it's just a slow gurgle back. And like I said, if this little Brazaro's Weed Whacker set up with a Z-Crawl Junior, skips phenomenally, can get it into small places, and you can catch some really big fish doing it. All right, my follow-up baits, they're a worm, but they're rigged differently. My first follow-up, when I get hit or I get blown up on, is going to be a wacky rig. One of the easiest skipping baits that's ever been produced. This thing can skip a mile. So you can put this thing back in there and let that thing slowly fall down to the bottom. And usually a lot of times if you missed a fish or you had a fish come out and show itself and you go back to it later, you can throw a wacky rig in there and they'll come out there and just choke it. I use a VMC crossover ring, and I like a little bit bigger hook. This is an owner sniper. It's got an, I don't know if y'all can see that or not, it's got an offset bend to it. So the bend of the hook is not in line with the shank. What that helps with, a lot of times when they eat a wacky rig style bait, they'll curl that worm and you'll come back and the worm will be hooked into your hook and you won't get them. Or when you set the hook, it doesn't roll right and the hook just comes out of their mouth. With this offset point, when you set the hook, it's going to roll up into that top lip and you're going to hook them just about every time up in that top corner right here. That's why I like this hook wacky rigging. Another way is a weighted wacky, great for when they want a little bit faster fall. My other follow-up bait is another worm, but it's a Nico rig. The Nico rig is a really good one to be able to toss under a dock and skip up underneath there and shake it in place. You don't have to make it come out from the dock. You can literally just sit there and shake it in place and you can pick up some really good fish this way. I use, to skip docks with, I use a 3/32 ounce snail weight. I like the VMC crossover ring because I can wacky rig and I can Nico rig with it. And then I've ran out, but this is the Nico hooks that I had. This is the VMC Nico hook, but the Hayabusa, I use a Hayabusa wacky rig hook, and it's weedless wacky rig hook, and it works extremely well Nico rigging. This is the Berkley Maxscent trick worm, or hit worm, not trick worm, hit worm. Great follow-up bait under docks, or if you've got really lethargic fish. Nico and wacky rig are hard to beat under docks. Those are my 5 baits, my 5 style baits that I throw during the pre-spawn around docks. And like I said in the beginning, I feel like it is the most unutilized pre-spawn pattern in bass fishing, because everybody's out there targeting the rock piles, they're targeting the points, the secondary points, they're targeting channel swings, and the docks are kind of forgot about. Marina docks are huge right now because a lot of your marinas are tucked back, not tucked back into a pocket, but most of them lead back into a spawning bay. So marinas are huge for these fish to set up on, and every one of these baits you can fish around a marina extremely well. Another thing that you noticed that I probably, because I've said in other videos, is I didn't have any red. When I'm fishing docks, usually it's bright sunny outside and they've got it they're tightly pulled to them. Arena. I hope this helps y'all out on dock fishing just a little bit. Don't be afraid to target these docks, especially during pre-spawn. Docks are a phenomenal place to catch bass, and some big ones. I hope this has helped y'all as far as my mindset of approaching docks during the pre-spawn. They use them as cover. They use them as feeding stations. They use them as staging areas to go back and spawn later on. And they can just sit there and never leave. They can sit under these docks and just feed for weeks before they go and spawn. So don't forget about the docks when you're going out there during pre-spawn and fishing. Y'all have a good day. If you enjoyed this video, please mash the like button. Also, mash the subscribe button. There will be new videos posted every week to 2 weeks. Y'all have a blessed day.